The Hesston Steam Museum's Steam and Power Show. The big event on Labor Day weekend, when all the engines, well, most of them anyway, are brought out and lots of people flock to the museum to see the increase in traffic. On August 31st, 2024, we headed out for the first day of the Steam and Power Show. When we arrived at Hesston's, we went to the vendors first before taking a look at the trains. The power for the big train was the number 7 Shay, which was quite exciting as number 2 normally does these trips. Honestly, I prefer number 2, but it was nice to see the Shay for a change. Soon after we arrived, it pulled out of the station with a thunderous roar, pulling the Cedar Point silver coaches. At the micro gauge station, there was a replica of NS 1070, the Wabash Heritage Unit, and a Monon F unit. Over at the only siding at the entirety of Hesston's, the Kittyland Limited was just sitting there, waiting for the Set Inquiry Central 1 to pass. They had just brought the Kittyland Limited out of the shed. I was super excited because that meant I got to get a meet between the two. This stuff is incredibly rare and only happens at the Steam and Power Show. Next to the station, we see some narrow gauge rolling stock, including this caboose that's currently being built, a GL&L gondola, and an East Broadtop coal hopper. Here we see Set Inquiry Central 1 back at the main station. Here we see the Pennsy 8102 Heritage Unit replica at the mini train station, while the Shay pulls back into the station after completing its round trip. Just like what happens on non-Steam and Power Show days, just as the big train pulled in, the medium one departed, with one at the helm. Then the 8102 replica roars out of the station, with a good horn show as it passes the crossing. Note how the right ditch light on 8102 actually flashes when the horn is blowing. That's a nice touch. Near the locomotive shops, we get to see a 3-foot gauge B&O Tom Thumb replica. And looking into the shops, we see a small diesel switcher and number 2 behind it. Back at the station, the Shay roars into life once again and departs. Take a look at that gearing equipment underneath the cylinders as it goes by. After that, we head to the micro train station where we saw 1070 depart. We then decided to ride the micro gauge train. We got onto the Monon F unit as 8102 pulled in. After a brief wait, Monon 96 roared into life and took our tiny train out of the station. As we pass through the forested area at Hesston's, we see the Wabash 1070 barely poking its way through the trees. And the Shay, making quite a dramatic appearance on top of this hill.
I like that.
And as that happens, we pass underneath the Elaine Bridge. This bridge really does look like a model railway. I don't know why. The locomotive leading this train is a Monon F7, I believe, number 96. Unfortunately, this engine does not still exist in real life as a full-sized engine, and this live diesel, I guess? I don't know. Replica is all we have of it. As we pass over the Elaine Bridge, 8102 surprises us by going underneath the line below. This is a great shot. It came at the perfect time. We burst out of the forest and into the bright sunlight once again, and peer into the micro gauge locomotive shops. If you look closely, you can see an SAL painted GP9 that rarely ever comes out. And then we pound over the only diamond at the entirety of Hesston's. Then we go underneath the signals and pull into the station, finishing our ride on the micro train. Very nice ride. I'd probably say this is the most enjoyable of all the rides at Hesston's, since it gives you the longest experience and because of all the unique locations you get to see. Here we look into the other micro gauge train shop and see a tiny 040. I quickly snap a photo of 96 on my way out. Very nice little live diesel model. And then head over to the refueling station where the medium gauge engines are refueled. Here, number 1 is departing after getting a top off. As you can see, it's not doing a very good job and is slipping quite a bit. A few minutes later, the Kittyland Limited shows up, stops to pick up water, and then departs. This guy was apparently doing a better job than number 1, but it still slipped quite a bit. Since the train was slowing down, it was going so slow that I could literally walk alongside it. So I ended up pacing it on foot as it traveled down the line towards the station. After it rolled to a stop, I headed to the micro gauge train station to see 8102 depart again. Back near the shed, we see the 3-foot gauge Tom Thumb replica in operation. It heads down the small set of track before stopping near the viewing pavilion. Now we see the Shay sneak past the sheds and head into the forest once again. This is the only section of the journey besides the beginning and end that's visible to the public. Sad, as I like to see more of the train while it isn't departing or stopping. Unfortunately, you can't really go back here to get a better view, so this is all I have. Now we head back near the micro gauge train station, to this curve where the train slowed down before getting into the station. This is the only place on the micro gauge area where you could see the train stop, so I knew I had to do this. First we see Monon 96 pulling in. Now at my favorite Hesston spot to shoot trains from, since you can see all 3 gauges here, the Monon departs from the station and heads by me. Then, number 1 departs, with a huge roar and lots of steam. It's remarkable how this engine went from not moving at all to dashing in the span of about 30 seconds. Here we get a good view of the coaches, 6 Riverview, 7 Silver Beach, and 5 Kittyland, as well as the Second Quarry Central caboose. And as soon as the caboose passes, we see that the Shay is also departing, so I finally get a non-backlit view of it. Now 8102 departs from the micro train station. You get a really good view of that horn-powered ditch light. Back at the curve, it's Wabash's turn to pull into the station. Back at the station, Wabash is pulling out. But so is the Kittyland Limited, giving me this epic shot where I got stuck in between both trains. Awesome. Now we're back at the main station, waiting for the Shay to go back so we can ride on it. As that happens, number 1 pulls in. You can see on the front there that they replaced the older headlights with new LEDs. I think they look bad and they definitely look worse in real life than they do on camera, but I do understand why they did it. Now we're on the train, and the wait for the train to depart was so long that number 1 made a full round trip and passed by us before we departed. And so did 8102. And then number 1 departed. And then 1070 pulled in. And then the Shay finally got its butt moving.
A few words of safety as we depart. Please keep
As the Kittyland Limited was pulling in.
different types of narrow gauge. There's American gauge, which is...
And the Tom Thumb was also going. Man, I saw like every engine at Hesston minus the Mona F unit in like 3 minutes there. That just proves how insane the Steam and Power Show really is. As we roll by the medium gauge locomotive shops, we see the other Kittyland Limited, a 482 Mountain. I don't know why they never use this one, but they never do. The Shay was working real hard to get up some of these gradients, especially around Cinder Point.
Travel forwards, we're climbing 5 feet up.
Bursting out into the sun once again, we head by the Michigan Curve. Just a few feet off to the left here is the Indiana-Michigan state line. As you can see, there are 2 eagles flying in the sky above the Shay. So that was pretty cool.
The town of Hesston was first settled in 1835, when Matthew Mays opened a blacksmith shop, similar to the one here at the museum.
On our way back, we saw the Kittyland Limited, and then passed by the main narrow gauge locomotive shops. First we saw this crane, and then we got a view into the actual shop complex. Flying Dutchman Railroad number 15, a small diesel switcher, was here, along with the coaches used for the Halloween events, and a few scattered coaches and bits of locomotives. There were no engines in the shop, however. And then the Shay finally pulled back into the station and passed by that little static medium gauge 040.
Welcome, Hesston.
After we got off the train, we headed onto the little path and then over towards the miniature gauge station, where we saw Monon 96 depart. Followed shortly by 8102. And then that was followed shortly by the Kittyland Limited. Followed shortly by the Shay. Back at the main station, we once again see number 1 pull in. And then we pace Wabash on foot as it departs. Then we catch number 1's departure. At this point, I was ready to leave, but wanted a shot of the Shay going around the curve near the lake, so I had to wait. Now we see the Kittyland Limited pulling into the station as well. Then we see 8102 heading around the bend. And then finally, I get my Shay going around the lake shot with some epic whistling and away from the engineer. That was it for the main area of Hesston's, but we still weren't done yet. Because on our way out, we stopped at the road leading out because the medium gauge train actually goes over the road. And we wanted a shot of it going through the railroad crossing. It still baffles me that Hesston's even has a railroad crossing. Well, I hope you enjoyed this vlog, and if you can, make sure to come to next year's Hesston Steam and Power Show. Hesston is located in Hesston, Indiana, of course. If you can't, that's fine, but man, you need to if you want to. That was phrased weirdly. Anyways, the point I'm trying to get to is that this is an amazing event, and it's Hesston's main moneymaker, and so they need people to come if they want to stay in business. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this vlog, and make sure to come back for another vlog just like this one.